Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming and welcome to tonight's screening of Immoral Code. My name is Jillian Flood and I'm the new project officer with Minds Action Canada. Before this, I was actually working for Stop Killer Robots, so I'm really excited to be here tonight for the screening of their new film. So Immoral Code is about a weapon that has the chance to be stopped before it even starts. Autonomous weapon systems or killer robots are not fiction. I know when I first started hearing about them, I was picturing actual robots with machine guns marching down the street, but that's not what we're talking about. Killer robots are any weapon system that has decision-making artificial intelligence built in. So this could be drones, tanks, machine guns. As long as the weapon has AI built in that can make its own decision over who to kill, it's a killer robot. So I know it sounds like they're far in the future, but they are starting to be researched and developed by many states. And we have the opportunity to call for global regulations before the weapon has the chance to claim innocent lives. With the backdrop of a major aggressive war happening in Europe, the world is really starting to pay attention to the threat of deadly weapon systems. We need to use this momentum to call on states to develop a treaty that regulates killer robots. Immoral Code is a documentary that contemplates the impact of killer robots in an increasingly automated world, one where machines can make decisions over who to kill or what to destroy. The film examines whether there are situations, whether it's morally or socially acceptable to take life, and most importantly, would a computer know the difference? After the film, we'll be having a short panel discussion with 3 experts, and then afterwards you'll have the chance to ask any questions that you might have about the campaign, the film, or killer robots in general. And without any further ado, please enjoy Immoral Code.
When you see issues like poverty, there are people who are dying of poverty, infant mortality rate, most urgent things that are happening in the world. The pandemic has shown, for example, how the world is not ready for most of the things that are devastating to humanity. And here we are as humanity investing billions and billions of dollars in developing a technology that seeks to kill. I think as civilizations, as humans, we've come very far. That some of the things that we continue tolerating perhaps should not be tolerated.
Okay, I'm intrigued, but yes, I'm ready to begin.
Yes.
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 Yes, I'm ready to begin.
Definitely yes.
I think so.
Yes.
I think yes.
I am.
Yes.
Am I a human? Wow.
Yes.
Yes, I'm human, the last time I looked today.
No.
No. Definitely no.
Have you ever broken the law? So aware of people being here.
Not that I know of.
That's such a lie.
Not that I know of.
Yes.
I've stolen stuff when I was a kid.
Have you ever killed another human being? No. No.
No.
Yeah.
What?
Video games.
No.
No.
I'm nodding, but I haven't killed another human being.
No.
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 That's
Ooh,
If it was kill or be killed.
Really?
Yeah.
Definitely no. Could never do that.
If I had to, in self-defense or, I guess, defending someone who I loved, I wouldn't like to. I'd like to think I would have a really hard time with it.
Yeah.
So what'd you say?
Yes, I would.
I say no. I guess no.
AI technologies take two forms, typically. They either can predict what we're going to do and make decisions on those predictions, or the other part of the decision-making AI can do is get involved with behaviors that we typically think associated with human beings. So machines that can see using computer vision, machines that can hear using audio recognition, or machines that can sense. And what both technologies typically do is use a process called machine learning.
The thing about artificial intelligence is that if you think about it like electricity, it's being introduced in every single aspect of our lives. It's being introduced in healthcare, it's on social media, in policing, in agriculture, in employment, everywhere. And so what that means is that when that technology makes a mistake, it has the ability to produce harm at an exponential level.
Data sets are the building blocks of learning. So the millions of digital images that are fed into the machine so that it can learn are called a data set. So what we do when we design these systems is that we think about the perfect use case. So in our society, perfection is aligned with whiteness, it's aligned with men, it's aligned with cis-presenting people, able-bodied people, and that's leaving out all of the other people on the margins. So the same people that are not recognized by facial recognition systems in policing become the same people who are historically over-policed and surveilled. What that does is just really reinforce and entrench existing inequalities.
The notion that data will decide if you're a good person or a bad person was one that was essentially developed post 9/11. Throughout history, we've had governments and companies say, our system is perfect, our system is impregnable, we can rightly identify bad people, and they've been wrong time and again. These systems are always fallible. We've already seen how facial recognition has been used to identify the wrong people in the same way that we've seen fingerprinting and DNA to be used to identify the wrong people. Technology is not a science that can be perfected. It's an engineering problem where we're always trying to balance the advantages and disadvantages, the risks and the costs. And so as they calibrate these things to their interests, it's going to be calibrated against you at some point.
Not as much as we think stroke would like, I don't imagine.
Yeah.
I think you're supposed to believe that you have control over your identity, but we don't.
We don't. We're supposed to, but we don't.
So no.
And it says we use cookies. Can you accept this? Sometimes I reject this, but sometimes you can't see which button to press and it's just easier to just accept it.
I don't know enough about the digital world to know where any of the things I put on the internet or don't put on the internet go.
Am I happy to be labelled? No.
Yes, for me.
I guess I'm not happy to be, but I'm not super bothered about it. I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Yes. I am happy with that, yes.
Not really.
No.
No. There's a lot more to a person than their personal data.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think decisions based on personal data and algorithms are fair? Again, I'd say no, because that is not everything a person exists of.
You're losing human empathy, you're losing kindness, you're losing understanding. Absolutely, categorically no.
No.
Why not?
Because it all depends on who designs the algorithm. Because people can put bias into an algorithm.
But it's just coding.
Nah, yeah, but there's a human who still makes the algorithm. There's bias in that.
I'd probably say no. I think they're understandable, but they're not fair.
Yeah, they're not fair. Yeah, no.
Do you think machines, such as artificial intelligence, should be able to make decisions for you or on your behalf?
I'm inclined to say no, because I want to make my own decisions.
Yeah. Recommendations? Yes, yes, yes.
Yes.
Decisions? No, no, no.
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 You can't dehumanize people because we're not robots.
Are some types of people more likely to commit crimes?
I feel like it's difficult to answer because I feel like a lot of crimes are committed not necessarily because people are malicious or evil, but because of just their circumstances.
No, I think there's so many factors.
Yes. I don't think so.
Types of people, I mean, that's like someone that's probably, brought up to think that crime's okay.
But I think no. I think the steps that happen in a person's life that turns them into a criminal could happen to anyone.
I think so, isn't it?
I'm going to say yes.
I'm going to say no.
I guess if you take background to mean their upbringing or where they're from, I would say no. But if background means...
It's difficult.
Yeah.
That's a hard one. I'd say no. You could be a doctor, could be a lawyer, and still become a terrorist.
I'm going to say no. Are you going to say yes? You're going to say yes.
I'm not too sure.
Well, autonomy in standard English, it means to be self-governing. In a weapons system, when we talk about autonomy, we mean that it can select its targets, identify targets, and choose if and when to apply force. You can take any existing weapon that's designed to be remotely controlled, to be unmanned, and you can do a software update, and now it's autonomous. So, it can take any form. You can certainly have flying autonomous weapons, large ones, big drones, small drones. You can have tanks, you can have other kinds of ground weapons. There's a lot of interest in autonomous submarines, sentry weapons, anything could be autonomous. Computer systems are highly complex, and particularly this sort of computer system where you've got very high authority, very high autonomy, and a very complex environment. It's very easy for unintended actions to occur. And this has been seen in every time people have tried to build autonomous systems in any kind of context. Most recently on autonomous driving, we've seen a lot of surprises on the roads, and the roads are a less complex environment than a battlefield is, for sure.
The issue of decision making about whether you should shoot or not comes over most frequently in occasions where you're not in a major war fighting on a battlefront, but you're actually in a town or a city and you're imposing order and you're having to deal with civilians and this sort of thing, and you have to make rapid decisions about, is this person who's just come around this corner with a rifle, are they going to try and kill me, or is it just because they all carry rifles around here? And humans are very good at making that assessment and not just killing everyone. For example, a wounded enemy, once you realize he's injured and he's effectively surrendered, then he's given protection and looked after.
So humans have the ability to sort of keep up with these changes, to use context, and machines don't, because the decision making when you build a software system is done. Like, you have prepackaged decisions, and if the context changes and those prepackaged decisions are no longer appropriate, it's too bad. I mean, these systems are going to have to be quite complex if they're going to try and make appropriate decisions in different contexts. And unfortunately, the more complex of a software system you build, the more places that you have left potential chinks in your defenses for hackers. Your risk of being hacked is pretty much proportional to the amount of code you have in your system.
You hear reasons from people who are developing these weapons where they say, we developing these weapons because, for example, the use of autonomous weapon systems will save lives on the battlefield because they do not act out of emotion, all those kind of reasons. And to begin with, I've, in my research, articulated how that is wrong. I do not think at the moment I've heard any explanation from states or scholars to convince me that there is a legal or ethical reason or humanitarian reason why these killer robots or why these autonomous weapon systems are being developed. The only reason I discern from my research, from my consideration when I look at the whole issue in total, is that this is political, it's geopolitics. It's a brute desire of one people to continue dominating another.
Is there ever a circumstance where it is acceptable to kill someone? Self-defense?
Yes, I'd say so.
If someone's attacking you and someone dies because you're fighting back or something, it's still, I don't know, it's not acceptable, but it's understandable, maybe?
I was going to say the same thing, like understandable but not acceptable. I don't think it's ever acceptable to kill another person.
That's a big question. Is it ever acceptable? It shouldn't be, but it happens, doesn't it?
When's it happen?
In wars.
Yeah, but is that acceptable?
No.
So then there isn't a circumstance.
Yeah, so no, my answer is no. It's not acceptable.
If someone's attacking, I would say no. Even though they are attacking me, I do believe in life.
No.
No, but it might lead to it.
Yeah.
Self-defense might lead to it.
I'm glad he said that. Yeah, so, and it depends on the level of attack as well. It could be verbally attacking, so.
My feeling is to say yes to protect yourself, but if I was in that situation, I don't know what I would do.
So I don't think you can have a right to kill anyone, first of all. But sometimes in war you kill them. But no, I don't think so.
No. If you were at war and an enemy soldier were attacking you, would it be acceptable to kill them?
I mean, if they're specifically attacking me, I guess, yeah.
I'd certainly defend myself, and if they had to be killed to protect myself or protect my family, then my instinct would just say yes.
If the other soldier wants to kill me, I'll have to kill him as well.
I'm saying no. What you said.
So yes, probably.
Yes.
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 If that enemy soldier was 12 years old, would it still be acceptable to kill them?
Now this is a hard one. I would say no.
No. No. It's horrific.
No.
I'd say no.
But you said it's acceptable to kill an 18-year-old.
It's not nice, but if they have a gun in their hands, What you
I
can
think
do.
it's a choice. Either you die or they die. So you make a choice then.
Okay, that's a really difficult question. I don't know what I'd do in that situation. That's the honest answer.
At the current moment, there is not sufficient law or existing law is adequate to govern autonomous weapon systems or killer robots. We need a new legally binding instrument governing autonomous weapon systems. And the fundamental question is, from which forum should this new law come from? And I have said it should come from a forum that is able to consider the potential use of these technologies, both in situations of armed conflict and situations outside armed conflict, that is law enforcement. And one of the principles in that law that is critical to include is the idea of maintaining meaningful human control over the use of force.
You know, if you're having these systems function without meaningful human control, making decisions about who to injure or who to kill, then if they make a mistake, who's going to be ultimately held accountable? No one is held accountable. And what that creates is an environment of complete impunity where states and militaries and police forces around the world feel like they can do whatever they want, they can target whoever they want, they can kill and injure whoever they want, and there will never be any consequences.
Warfare, and I've been involved in it, it is visceral and nasty and horrible, and people die, and there is blood, and there is screaming, and it is horrible. But to try and remove yourself totally from that and pretend that's not happening is, again, very, very dangerous. Because people, instead of realizing how horrible war is, you've got to do everything that is humanly possible to stop it. It suddenly becomes something, that's not too bad. Well, I'm afraid it is too bad. And I think that's where autonomous systems make it even worse.
One of the fundamental objections to the use of machines making the decision to use force or who to kill or target is that they can never be able to understand the value of human life. That is a value judgment that only humans can understand.
You know, every human being is worthy of dignity, and every human being should be considered to be equally valuable.
Delegating decision-making on such important thing in life and death, is morally unacceptable, is ethically unacceptable, and more than that, it's not necessary.
Where things are high stakes, where things require kind of judgment and ability to process context, where they require a sort of a sense of humanity, I mean, those are the decisions that need to stay with human beings.
Of course not. I don't think so. Always have supervision on human beings.
I don't see any situation where this is beneficial. I can see situations where it might be abused.
I don't know, like a life being decided by a machine just sounds absurd.
Yeah.
Like,
No. Because if something could go wrong.
1,000,000,000% no.
No.
No, I don't see any reason for that ever being the case.
I'd say no to this. I still think it should be the human who decides if you live or die, not a machine.
Hey, thank you everyone for watching, and welcome to those who joined during the film. I hope that gave some insight into the many ethical issues that killer robots pose. And with us tonight to talk about this further, we have Aaron Hunt, Cesar Jaramillo, and Charlotte Aiken. First, I'll turn it over to Erin. Erin is the program manager at Minds Action Canada, and she's been doing public education on the Ottawa Treaty, banning landmines since 2003, and working in humanitarian disarmament in various capacities since 2006. Erin's areas of expertise include the humanitarian impact of indiscriminate weapons, victim assistance, gender in disarmament, and Canadian disarmament policy. Erin has been heavily involved in the Stop Killer Robots campaign since its founding. Erin.
Thanks, Jillian, and thanks everyone so much for coming today. I always find Immoral Code a very interesting and thought-provoking film. And the opportunity to talk about it afterwards, I think, is really important. So I'd like to give you guys a little bit of background about why Minds Action Canada is hosting this film and a little bit of history of Stop Killer Robots. So Minds Action Canada is Canada's humanitarian disarmament campaign. And we co-founded the Stop Killer Robots campaign. It was actually 10 years ago next week. So we're coming up to our big 10th birthday. And what happened is that a group of non-governmental organizations working on disarmament, science and technology, human rights, and peace were all in New York in the margins of the UN General Assembly. And they got to discussing the issue of autonomous weapons. And upon realizing that we were at this crucial moment where we could potentially prevent such horrific weapons from ever being used, decided to create the campaign to stop killer robots. So the campaign was launched in 2013 in London. It does take us, a few months to get organized enough to hold a launch event. And since then, it's grown exponentially, and we now have members around the globe, and we have support that ranges from those original sort of peace, disarmament, human rights organizations into the tech sector, into development, into academia, business. We see really, really widespread support for our efforts to ban killer robots. One thing that Immoral Code does really well, I think, is it highlights the main issues that we have with autonomous weapons. So one of the things that came across really clearly, I think, is the idea of digital dehumanization. The problem that comes with by turning people into their data. The last screens you saw there are talking about converting us into yeses and nos and ones and zeros. We also have concerns about algorithmic bias that you heard discussed in the film. One of the things we worked on at Minds Action Canada a little bit was not just gender and race bias, but also ability bias, in that artificial intelligence usually cannot handle people with disability and people who have different mobility needs and move or act in unpredictable ways outside of the data that a system has been fed. I mean, we also have concerns about the loss of meaningful control over life and death decisions, both on the battlefield and in policing or at the border as well. The lack of human judgment and accountability continues to be a major concern. Our entire international and domestic legal system is based on the idea of accountability for decision-making. And when it's a machine that makes the decision, who is then accountable? Likewise, an issue that we have there, beyond it being a machine making the decision, is often we're looking at a black box decision making where data goes in, the algorithm assesses, and a decision comes out, but we don't know exactly what happens in that middle assessment session there and what was prioritized. And And you also heard about the idea of lowering the threshold of war from Lord Admiral West. And an arms race, which is something that we're already seeing the beginnings of some states really wanting to continue to develop autonomous weapons while others want a ban now and to stop the progress towards autonomous death on the battlefield. And finally, especially for some of our tech folks, there's a lot of concerns about this technology messing with humanity's relationship to artificial intelligence and to robotics. A lot of the roboticists and the AI experts that I've spoken to in the context of this campaign, they went into their field because they want to build cool things to help people. They don't want what they're doing to become tainted by it being used for a weapon. They don't want you to be scared of a robot that can help your elderly relative get in and out of their chair safely because similar technology is being used on the battlefield. So we have all of these variety of these concerns at Mines Action Canada and within the Stop Kill Robots campaign. And motivated by all this, we've been really advocating for Canada to take a leadership role in this issue. And we know that Canada has this disarmament leadership history where we invented humanitarian disarmament through the Ottawa process banning landmines. Canadian tech sector, whether it's academics or the businesses are really against autonomous weapons. ClearPath Robotics is the first robotics company in the world to say they won't build autonomous weapons, and they're based out of Waterloo. The government in Canada is still lagging a bit behind, even though we've had 2 foreign ministers with pursuing a ban on autonomous weapons in their mandate letters. But I think I will stop there and hand it over to Caesar and Charlotte and our other panelists who will be able to expand on some of this a little bit more. But I'm really looking forward to hearing everyone's questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin. Now I'll turn it over to Caesar Jaramillo. Caesar is the Executive Director at Project Plowshares and Chair of the Canadian Pugwash Group. His focus areas include nuclear disarmament, outer space security, the protection of civilians in armed conflict, emerging military technologies, and conventional weapons controls. As an international civil society representative, Caesar has addressed, among others, the United Nations General Assembly First Committee, the Conference on Disarmament, the UN Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space, as well as states parties to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty and to the Arms Trade Treaty. Caesar graduated from the University of Waterloo with an MA in global governance and has a bachelor's degree in political science and in journalism. Caesar, the screen is yours.
Thank you so much, Jillian, and thank you to everybody for being here and for giving us a bit of your time to discuss this important topic. Thanks, Erin, and to Mines Action Canada more generally for the kind invitation to participate in this panel. So at the Project Plowshares, where like Mines Action Canada, we are part of the international campaign to stop killer robots, and it has become a key focus of our work and a key priority area for us, and for a host of reasons, some of which Erin has alluded to, including the troubling questions that exist regarding accountability, legal questions, policy questions, etc. And we can get to those in a couple of minutes. But there's also a fundamental ethical question, and we're sort of unapologetic in highlighting that ethical question, whereby there may be very soon a future in which machines make life or death decisions. That's the long and the short of it. Yeah, and this is a threshold that has never been crossed in human history. We've had machines, we've had instruments of warfare and tools and swords and gunpowder, even nuclear weapons, but always with this concept of meaningful human control at the center of every warfighting capabilities. But that would be abandoned. That would change. And aside from questions, all valid, all thorny, all relevant, once again, of legal compliance, political compliance, military implications, etc., there is a fundamental sort of ickiness, a rejection, at least in many in the part of many observers, to this notion that we would cross that threshold and allow machines to make these sorts of decisions, and that is really, especially today, a situation where we're seeing just the tip of the iceberg, of the metaphorical iceberg, because I think the way in which artificial intelligence, killer robots being a prime example, but in several other ways, are going to or have the potential to revolutionize immigration, policing, the conduct of armed conflict, and many of other spheres of our lives, is we're at the cusp of a very a meaningful and consequential technological era of advancements around artificial intelligence that make it urgent for governments, for multilateral diplomats, for civil society, for engineers, for all sorts of sectors, to really become informed of this issue and contribute to a healthy debate and contribute to effective regulation. At Project Plowshares, we're strong believers in norms and in regulation, and we feel that a big part of the answer lies there. There must be norms crafted to restrict, to put the reins on these technologies, and we support the campaign to stop killer robots call for a preemptive ban on fully autonomous weapon systems. It's just not a good idea for a host of reasons that have been widely explored by a lot of people. And norms need to be the sort of the mechanism, or at least a key mechanism, through which the private sector and industry is regulated when it comes to the development of these types of weapons. Clear path robotics, which Erin mentioned as a good example, it is indeed a good example, but it's an exception and not the rule. Regrettably, I think the empirical evidence shows that the industry will go as far as it is allowed in terms of developing these technologies, in terms of integrating them promptly into military systems, and so it is up to governments to impose some limits and some concrete limitations on these developments. And I see this happening at two primary levels. On the one hand, at the multilateral level, that is at United Nations settings or ad hoc processes. We had some hope of on the CCW, the Convention on Certain Conventional Weapons, but it hasn't yielded a lot of results. But in some multilateral setting, there must be a general multilateral agreement on what is considered acceptable behavior, what is considered an acceptable direction of these technologies, what mechanisms are going to be in place to ensure that they are not diverted to nefarious purposes, etc., and military uses. So that is lacking. We're still not there. We have identified the risk. That's a lot of progress, including thanks to the campaign to stop killer robots. But the action has not matched the sort of the magnitude of the risk. There's a lot of conversation. There's a lot of spinning the wheels at these multilateral forums, and we're hoping to see some concrete action in terms of an international agreement on some basic parameters, again, on what is considered acceptable. And separate and parallel to this, I think at the national level, domestic legislation needs to reflect the growing risks that are associated with artificial intelligence, risk to citizens, in this case, Canadian citizens. How are we going to balance the reality that this technology is being developed? It already exists. It's being perfected, artificial intelligence, with the need to protect citizens from undue surveillance, to guarantee privacy rights, to ensure that citizens are not targeted on the basis of race or any other attribute or identifier that is present in some of these data sets that the film was talking about. So once again, I think both at the multilateral level and at the domestic level, there is a dire need for regulation. I would point out in this regard that in terms of arms control, and Erin knows this, and we follow various files related to arms control, historically, efforts to implement effective arms control measures can become a lot more complicated once a certain category of weapons has been used in the battlefield, has been normalized, has been accepted in the collective consciousness as one more in the toolbox for warfare, and that is the case with conventional weapons, even with nuclear weapons. It's very hard because they've been used and somehow normalized. With these fully autonomous weapon systems, I think the international community has a somewhat unique opportunity at this point, and this is not a perpetual opportunity, it's a time-sensitive opportunity to be proactive for once when it comes to trying to prevent a certain category of weapons from getting out of hand, from being deployed, from being normalized, and this is the time to do it. We're at the cusp of technological breakthroughs that would make these systems a reality, but there is no inherent sense of inevitability. We believe that the international community has the tools, again, through normative regimes, through regulations, through voluntary agreements, etc., a host of ways in which we can put certain limits on these technologies. But it's a matter of having the right political leadership and the right appetite for actually limiting military's ability to employ these technologies, because the reality is that there is resistance, particularly from the most militarily advanced states that do not want to see their hands tied and want to keep sort of the option to use these technologies in the battlefield. But that's I think the case has been made compellingly and repeatedly that the risks in the end are going to be outweighing the benefits of employing these technologies. And one last point is that a key challenge, I think, in terms of our societal response to these challenges and to these technologies that could be employed in nefarious ways through military systems, etc., is that the package they are packaged with very appealing attributes. The notion of artificial intelligence, we can't get enough of smartphones and artificial intelligence and all of these things. So a nuclear weapon is a weapon that looks like a weapon. A gun is a weapon that looks like a gun. But this whole conversation about the potential, military uses of artificial intelligence, the dangers of killer robots, valid as they are and real as they could be, are somehow in the public imagination tied with artificial intelligence, which itself has some positive attributes, and the self-driving car and applications for medicine, for social and economic progress, for many positive things. So it's a matter, I think, of disaggregating basically the benefits that we do want to have as a society, because we're not techno skeptics. I mean, we do feel that society should and could benefit from the possibilities made possible by the advent of artificial intelligence, while prescribing those that we do not want, because we see them as harmful to collective security and national security. So lots more to be said, but I think this is a file that requires and should get as much attention, including as possible, including from the Canadian government at every forum where this is relevant.
Thank you, Cesar. And finally, we have Charlotte Akin, who is the Projects and Logistics Officer for Stop Killer Robots, where she provides logistical, administrative, and financial support. Charlotte is passionate about disarmament, human rights, and gender justice, and has worked for organizations such as Amnesty International USA, Canadian Voice of Women for Peace, and Ban the Bomb Ottawa. Charlotte has a master's degree in global development studies from Queen's University, specializing in children's rights and refugee policy, and recently completed the Scholarship for Peace and Security by the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe and the United Nations Office for Disarmament Affairs. Charlotte, the screen is yours.
Thanks so much, Jillian, and thanks to Aaron and Cesar for really situating us in this discussion after the film. And, I'm going to just provide some context on updates on the campaign's activities and additionally provide some ways that we can move forward, ways that you can take action on this issue in Canada or abroad if you're situated there. So just to reiterate, the Stop Killer Robots campaign is a shared global movement working to ensure meaningful human control in the use of force. And, as you've probably guessed, we are calling for new international law on autonomy in weapon systems, and we reject the automation of killing in warfare, policing, border control, and other circumstances. So I won't go into what autonomous weapons are. Hopefully we can, you already get a sense of what is at stake here, but I just wanted to mention the recent activities the campaign has been working on at the multilateral and international level. So after 9 years of discussion on this topic at the UN Convention on Certain Conventional Weapons, the CCW, there's a lot of acronyms, so apologies in advance. But the most recent meeting in July of the group of government experts really resulted in a damning failure to make progress on this issue in this forum. So, despite a number of detailed proposals from dozens of states that called for new international framework containing prohibitions, regulations, and other measures to address the really serious legal, ethical, humanitarian, and security risks that are posed by autonomous weapon systems, the final outcome document of the meeting was really devoid of any substance. So the CCW, this forum doesn't operate by majority rule, it's ruled by consensus. So that really means that a single state can block any decision it chooses, really kind of giving it an effective veto. So as a campaign, we're really keen to pursue a way forward towards a process, talking about this issue that's more inclusive, that's more progressive, and that's more comprehensive. So the CCW deals with weapons in circumstances of armed conflict, but as we've seen, these weapons could be used in policing, border management, etc. So for us, what we really want to do is actually consolidate the progress that has been made at the CCW. So this forum, after 9 years, there's a really strong emergence of policy coherence among, many different states that, again, like I mentioned, that the outcome document didn't necessarily have any substance, but the actual discussions were really quite, substantial. And what we would like to do is to just consolidate that progress that has actually been made at the multilateral level that addresses the serious risks and dangers. So for us, that takes the form of an international treaty, and that contains, prohibitions. So certain autonomous weapon systems are just deemed unacceptable and need to be prohibited, those that target humans and those that are not under meaningful human control. But then a series of regulations as well on these weapon systems. So they should be subject to positive obligations that ensure they're under meaningful human control, but also regulations regarding, target specifications. So, explaining what the decisions that were made into selecting a target, accountability, force applications, also some spatial temporal limits when and where these weapons could be used, and above all, just promoting human control and baking in human rights and the right to life, right to dignity into every single aspect of the development of these systems, and also the use. So right now we're really attempting to consolidate support for a legally binding instrument. So exploring different avenues. We were disappointed with the outcome of the most recent CCW meeting in July, but there's a lot of positive developments that are happening despite, some of the setbacks we faced. So recently, last week, the Human Rights Council adopted a resolution on the human rights implications of new and emerging technologies in the military domain. Last week, Boston Dynamics, among other 6 other robotics companies, actually came out and pledged to say that they will not weaponize their general use robots. And obviously there's a caveat to that, general use robots, there's still, the avenue for military use robots to be developed into autonomous weapon systems. But, it's a positive step forward to see industry even just taking that step and, providing that open letter, pledging not to participate in this, arms race that's basically, already begun. And then last week, a few members of the campaign were at the UN First Committee on International Security and Disarmament, and a number of states actually raised their concerns about autonomous weapon systems. And this was really positive for us because a lot of the time, the discussion about autonomous weapon systems is really sort of relegated to that CCW forum I mentioned earlier. And it was really great for us to, interact at a different forum to, show that there are concerns like, there are human rights concerns and there are other international security concerns that, we should really be addressing with autonomous weapon systems. And, there's a lot of engagement on this issue, and states are actually really taking action. Costa Rica is leading a regional meeting in February to discuss this issue and what the region can do about it. But we are looking for avenues on, what forum, where would this treaty be negotiated? It's really quite open at this point. It could be at something like the UN General Assembly, like their like the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons had, or independent parallel processes like the Ottawa process for landmines, Oslo process for cluster munitions. So really just it's up to states at this point to exercise that political leadership to launch treaty negotiations, to really get the 9 years of discussions we've had to just get that into writing and get things moving, because like Caesar mentioned, we have a time sensitive window in when we can actually preempt the development and use of these weapons. So on the global side, public opinion and the majority of people are ready for a legally binding instrument. So we have 70 states in the CCW forum, that's the majority, already support a legally binding instrument on autonomous weapon systems. The UN Secretary General, the International Committee of the Red Cross, Nobel Peace Laureates, the list really goes on. And it's really positive just to see it's an issue that really galvanizes people, but it's also, something a majority of people can already kind of, come on board with. So we just need a little bit more of that push to kind of go across the line to get treaty negotiations started up, and we can actually, take action in this really time sensitive environment. So if you would like to take some steps further to engage on this issue, obviously it's great to follow our social media, Stop Killer Robots, but additionally, you can just see any updates that we are posting if we're at certain events. But additionally, we recently just launched a parliamentary pledge. So you can ask your member of parliament to sign on to reject the automation of killing and a few other, tenets of the campaign, and to urge wherever state that member of parliament is coming from, to urge their national governments to show leadership and to launch treaty negotiations and to reject the automation of killing. So I'll send a link for the parliamentary pledge in the chat, but then additionally, we also have a petition that you can sign. You can take action right now. And additionally joining a Canadian member organization, so supporting the work of Minds Action Canada or Project Plowshares, already doing fantastic work in this area, or say you work with another organization, you're already have your plate full, join the campaign. It's free, and you can get, you know, exclusive updates, tools to support your advocacy work. We also have a grants program as well. So there's really so many opportunities that you can, you know, take action on this issue. And again, I'll just put everything in the chat, but I'll stop there. And again, just thanks so much to Minds Action Canada for convening this, and look forward to the discussion.
Thank you so much, Charlotte. And the link to the petition is now in the chat for everyone to check out. I'll now turn it over to the audience. So any questions you might have about Killer Robots, the campaign, the film, or the work that still needs to be done, please feel free to ask any of our panelists. You can use the Zoom function to raise your hand, and then I can unmute you. Or if you'd prefer, you can also type your question in the chat and I can read it out loud for you. So does anybody have any questions for our amazing panelists? Okay, Paul, I'll unmute you. Perfect.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, thanks so much for the screening, and good to see some familiar faces here. Maybe a question that Aaron and Caesar might expect from me, but I'll ask this to Charlotte. So Charlotte, I've shown like the Slaughterbots video to a Peace and Conflict Studies course I teach to engineering students at the University of Waterloo. And so this is a nice additional option, particularly for more philosophically minded students. But I'm wondering, in addition to kind of joining the advocacy effort, I'm wondering if you can think of concrete suggestions for students with technical skills who might want to get involved in this kind of issue where they could make a meaningful contribution to the effort. So in addition to lending their name, coming out to events, maybe choosing their employment options more intentionally, are there ways that tech skills can be applied to the campaign in a meaningful way?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'm afraid I'm going to just keep pushing the lending their name, but I think it's really important to have tech students, robotics students involved just at the outset to, you know, see sort of what the things they could be working on could be developed into, right? So I think as tech students, presumably you're going to want to work in the tech sphere as well. So really having the buy-in from industry that we're slowly seeing happen, like I mentioned with the Boston Dynamics open letter, really pledging not to participate in the development of autonomous weapon systems. But I think, you know, just having students exposed to this issue, I think when I speak with other people, with young people, they don't even know that this is a topic that is even, we're even having a conversation about. People are like, oh my God, killer robots, the Terminator, it's all like science fiction. But I just think having that exposure to students and, you know, maybe changing their thinking a bit, like Aaron mentioned, for, you know, I want to go into robotics to make cool things to help people. And I guess sort of shifting the mindset and, you know, really approaching the topic in a way that, you know, how can my work, you know, benefit society as a whole. And, you know, I don't think people would go into, you know, tech thinking I want to, you know, make a weapon system that could kill indiscriminately. But I think the way that, you know, like financing works, money, like pursuit of profit, it a lot of the time inevitably turns to, you know, the classic military industrial complex. And I just think that, you know, having students have that preemptive understanding of, you know, hey, my work could be maybe used for not so good purposes. So I think, you know, just general exposure would be fantastic. And then, you know, perhaps integrating that perspective of meaningful human control at every single step of studying and development of, if you're working on a project, how, is this going too far in automation? So yeah, I'm not sure I have any other concrete suggestions other than, learning and being more exposed to this issue. So I hope it's an interesting enough topic for folks to want to, pursue further and, maybe see their role in society as doing something good with the work that they do and the knowledge that they're pursuing.
Sorry, is it okay if I jump in, Paul? Sorry. I mean, not only everything that Charlotte said is great. Some of the things that, from a very tech perspective, that I think could help is one, to really prove that the technology is not infallible. That we need to show that, the people that are supporting these technologies and wanting to move forward when it comes to autonomous weapons say that the technology will be much better than humans. And so using tech skills to show the possibility of failure, I think would be very useful. And there are ways to do this kind of work while still pursuing building cool things. We're currently discussing a way for Minds Action Canada to partner with students at a local university in the engineering program for them to build something cool, not like a robot, but something else cool. I don't want to spoil too much. That will be a good campaigning tool and an interesting way for people to explore the issue. So, I mean, there's ways to apply skills that the average diplomat and politician, who are the ones making these decisions about law and policy, they don't have. So they need that level of expertise to show them the reality of the technology. But yes, I'm sorry, I'll stop now because I'm conscious of
if I may, not to be left behind, but just one further thought, and I agree with everything that's been said by Erin and Charlotte on student engagement. Paul, I would add faculty. I mean, the importance of having faculty aware of these issues, and because I think that initial exposure that students may have, perhaps the first point of contact might come from a professor or somebody teaching a course. So I think that in terms of course design and sort of departmental priorities, however framed, I think it's also at the faculty level that a lot of difference can be made in terms of that bringing the students up to that level of awareness and sensitivity to the risks involved or potential risks involved.
Thank you, Paul, for that question, and thanks to all the panelists for your answers. Are there any other questions from the audience? Yes. Okay. There you go.
Okay. I missed part of the conversation. Coincidentally, I was watching another movie. I'm going to put the link in for everyone if they were interested. What I learned in relation to the number of countries that actually they don't have military. I think it was over 30 countries, And even many European countries they have a neutral position. So when the comment was made about how to educate our students, is that I think this aspect needs to also be emphasized, that you know, I appreciate that the focus here is on autonomous killing machine, but I mean, the rest of the weapons are also for death and destruction. And, you know, at some level, one can be quite concerned about that too. Anyway, back to this recent movie that I watched, which I actually learned about Costa Rica. And another point that was interesting, many of the South American countries, their military was primarily an instrument for coup d'etat, being used to, you know, just change democratic regimes and put in place you know, a powerful man. And so actually the countries that got rid of their military end up not having coup d'etat. So they could actually bring democracy and having civil regime rather than military regime. So the point I'm making here, while I completely admire the work and advocacy you're doing, I'm going to certainly sign and support the link. But as far as really educating people, I think there is a lot more to learn to broaden our understanding. I think when we are growing up, we are just being told that, you know, for our security, yes, we need to have all these killing machines one way or another, but there are other ways one can achieve security. So I hope I'm not too off the track in here, but thanks for listening.
Thank you so much for your comments. We are running a little bit over time, so I think we just have one more question from the audience. Is there anybody that has a question for our panelists? Oh, Janice, one moment, I'll unmute you.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Hello. Good. My question concerns the education, the outreach that perhaps Aaron, somebody like you, the military, you're talking about ideally outreach to students and faculty to understand this issue. But what about engagement of this sort with the military of pursuing?
Yeah. Oh, yes.
That's it.
Thanks. Thanks, Janice, and thanks, Nahid, for your comments. Interestingly, one of the strongest community that oppose autonomous weapons are military, serving personnel, veterans, and their families. So there's been surveys done dating back to, I don't think I wrote down the year Charlie Carpenter did a survey where, yeah, the strongest support for a ban on autonomous weapons comes from military personnel, because they don't want to be facing autonomous weapons. They don't want to have their lives ended by an algorithm. A lot of what you see from militaries is about, you know, valor and honor and the humanity of their work. And they, when you look at your work that way, having autonomous weapons take the battlefield, it's just counter to those values that are embedded in most militaries. So what we do speak with the military defense departments, and most of the time it's the people with the boots on the ground don't want this technology. The scientists in a lab, defense scientists, or the policy people that read a little bit too much science fiction are the ones that are pushing for this. So it's a matter of making sure that we can get the voices from the ground into the labs and into the policy documents. And some of the ways that we can do that, which is similar to what Naheed was talking about, is bringing in concepts of international humanitarian law and human rights law and the humanity and the training that military personnel go through. But yeah, so it is, we definitely do outreach and talk to the Defense Department and the military on this topic. And it goes better than you would expect, perhaps. Thanks.
Good. That's good.
Okay, that was our last question for the evening. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for the screening and for asking these great questions. It's really nice to see the enthusiasm around this topic, as Charlotte was talking about. So please, everyone, sign the petition that's now in the chat. We also have shared the parliamentary pledge, which you can also share. And thank you once again, everyone, for coming. If you have any more questions, you can email the email that I just put in the chat, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you so much. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you.
Thank you. Bye.